Welcome to the Typical Skeptic Podcast, where we dive deep, you decide. Questioning the matrix from UFOs, where the shadows unknown reside. Rob Khalil busting myths like ghosts in the night. Paranormal pros, secret space ops, yo, we keep it real, no fright. Typical skeptical, seeking, never sleeping on the lies. Aliens, Anunnaki, black ops in disguise. From abductions to ancient scripts, we flip the script. Why TSP style, mile after mile, truth can't hide. Hold up, TSP crew assemble, we dismantle the fable. My lab's targeted souls breaking out of the stable. Darman Hallen, Bigfoot prowling, cryptids in the mist. Mandela the fifth twist in reality, can't resist the twist. Soul trap snapping, reincarnation mapping, holographic dreams, near death visions, out of body missions, waking up the teams. No censorship here, we fear no elite scheme. Conspiracy kings ringing bells, hear the freedom ring. Skeptical seeking, never sleeping on the lies. Extraterrestrial.
Welcome to Typical Skeptic Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Welcome to Typical Skeptic.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic Podcast. We're up to 2782, and I have with me one of my favorite guests. He's an award-winning author, lecturer, researcher, and documentary filmmaker whose groundbreaking work explores UFOs, the Nephilim, ancient prophetic texts, supernatural phenomena, and what he believes may be a global deception, and that's L.A. Marzulli. He's the author of 14 books, including the bestselling Nephilim Trilogy, On the Trail of the Nephilim, Rungs of Disclosure. He has hosted, produced, and directed over 34 documentary films, including the acclaimed Watchers series and his continuing UFO Disclosure series. His film, Watchers 7, Physical Evidence, won both Best UFO Film and People's Choice Award at the International UFO Congress. Tonight, LA joins the Typical Skeptic Podcast to discuss UFO Disclosure, Roswell, extraterrestrial versus interdimensional explanations, the Nephilim, elongated skulls, biblical prophecy, and his newest books and documentaries. And yeah, it's going to be an awesome interview. I'm going to bring him to the stage in a second. You can follow him at lamarzulli.net and also on YouTube at LA Marzulli. And LA, thanks so much for coming back on. How are you?
Hi, Rob. I'm good. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah. So your new book, The Waiting Room, it's actually a novel. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, you know, the Lord is a man that's got a great sense of humor. That's all I can tell you. So Peggy, my wife, and I are driving at dinner one night. It's a couple of years ago, and we're driving on the 101 freeway, and all of a sudden I get this download. And I look at my wife, I look at Peggy, and I go, oh my gosh, the Lord just gave me a novel. I mean, the bullet points for a novel. It's like, so we get to the restaurant and I'm scrolling things out or, punching the ideas out on my cell phone. And I wrote the book in 6 months. It's set up for a sequel. But what's great about the book is the protagonist, his name is Bob Frisbee, the center character of the book. And he has an NDE, near-death experience, except he winds up in the waiting room. And he meets this man that comes into the waiting room. And what's interesting about it, the whole book deals with forgiveness. It's a novel, so it's all fictional. But people who have read it say they laugh and cry their way through the book because it's in some parts it's really visceral. They're dealing with their own unforgiveness. And other places it's just really humorous. And so it's this, tug on the human emotion. And we've had a lot of great reviews with it. But The Waiting Room is available on Amazon. Just, under my name. You can get it on our website, lamarzulli.com. But the central thesis of the book is unforgiveness. And, when we really sit down and we start looking at the people that have wronged us throughout our life, many of us have unforgiveness. And that unforgiveness can lead to all sorts of things which are not good for a human being. Unforgiveness can lead to bitterness. Bitterness can lead to where you're bound up in bitterness to the point where you're getting ill, sick over it. I think some diseases, not all, but some diseases can be traced back to unforgiveness, bitterness. And in fact, we know that Jesus warns us, unless you can forgive others who've offended you, your Father in heaven will not forgive you. Whoa. You know, and I've experienced that. I mean, the Holy Spirit led me in that. This is decades ago, probably 46. So probably about, well, it doesn't matter. 36 years ago, I was dealing with that. And the Lord spoke spoke that verse to my heart. Unless you can forgive those who have hurt you and wronged you, you know, your Father can't forgive you. So in other words, unforgiveness sits in a person's soul and festers. And then from there, it leaches into the spirit and darkens the things of the spirit. It's not a good thing. Not a good thing.
Wow.
So we're not condoning the wrong, but we forgive. You know,
Yeah.
Jesus is on the cross and he goes, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So that's the whole book. But again, it's like you'd have to read it. It's pretty cool, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. What is there some truth like the NDE research about the waiting room? Is this a place where other NDEers did you base this off of like some stuff you found out about like near-death experiences in real life or people's experience?
Well, I had an NDE when I was like 18 years old. I mean, I left, I was gone. These two light beams came down and up we went and all these different places. And finally, I was in this incredible garden where the colors were so vibrant and so different than anything I'd ever seen before. And each flower was singing a song. There was a waterfall next to me, probably about 50 feet away, and it went down like this. And then below me was this valley that just seemed to go on forever. And I had the feeling that there were other beings that would come for me, but then I had the feeling of darkness, blackness, and falling backwards, and I woke up 3 days later. But yeah, I mean, I had an NDE. And so the waiting room is the idea that, you know, you can't, and again, this is sort of tongue in cheek, but you can't have for unforgiveness. A person can't have unforgiveness in their heart and be walking around in the heavenly realm. Because what happens if you see Joe over there, you know, who you had a really nasty argument and you guys have never reconciled? What happens with that? Well, and especially if you're in the heavenly realm. Hey, Joe, right? You can't, all that has to be gone when we leave here. All of it has to be. So the idea that the waiting room, the idea that the waiting room is you get this one last chance to kind of deal with things.
I wanted to say, do you think that's that like God or Jesus or who made that way because we're here to learn life lessons? So like the forgiveness is part of our life lessons that we have to transmute here on earth?
Well, you know, forgiveness is a big part of everything. I mean, there are so many people walking around with unforgiveness in their hearts. I mean, you know, people who have read The Waiting Room, you know, say things like, this book was fantastic and I laughed and cried all the way through it. But the lessons in the book are visceral. The lessons in the book can be life-changing. And people write, I didn't realize how much unforgiveness I had in my own heart. So it's a pretty cool book, if I do say so myself.
It sounds amazing. Yeah. Okay. Now the next thing I wanted to talk about was Rungs of Disclosure, Following the Trail of Extraterrestrials and End Times. You said this was republished. Yeah. So you originally put this out in the past, I guess, and
it came out. It'll be 2 years this October, so it's not that old. It's only and it deals with the first 17 rungs on the ladder of disclosure. The rungs of a ladder as we go up. The first rung being Commander David Fravor on Tucker Carlson's show. The reason why my publisher did a revised and expanding edition because we're up to rung number 30 at the present moment. So what we did is we expanded the book, revised the book, and that'll be out September 1st. That's the one you want to get.
So we're in the midst of disclosure, you would say right now. There's no stopping it. It's like full steam ahead. Well,
yes and no, but the ambivalence of the American people and the people of the world is just, the silence is deafening. I mean, people really don't care. I mean, they just don't. It's like, oh, well, tranche number 5 just came out, more fuzzy videos, got some testimony. Who cares? Honey, what's for dinner? My vacation's coming up in 2 weeks. I'm out of here. It's like, that's where people are at. They're burnt out on everything. They could care less for the most part. And that position is a very dangerous one.
Is it because of what maybe we might be facing a threat from the extraterrestrials or whatever they are?
Well, it's not a threat. It's just that when they show up, it changes everything. Think about this. So we've got tranche number 5. So May 8th of 2026, this year, our government, the War Department, rolled out footage, very fuzzy footage, but footage of UFOs, lots of eyewitness testimonies, affidavits from people in the military. So that was done. So for the first time, our government admitted, we're not sure what this is. They know exactly what it is, but that's what they say. But here it is. So Tim Burchett has stated on the record that he wishes the American people could see what he's seen, because what we see are these fuzzy photographs, fuzzy videos. This is our 10-box DVD set. We have 10 films on the UFO phenomena. That is the Kumbergaz UFO right there.
I remember that. I remember Dr. Lear got captured that originally, right?
We broke the story.
That's
Dr. Lear allowed us to break the story. It's in our Watchers film right there.
You were close with Dr. Lear, right? LA, like you worked with Dr. Lear a lot.
He was in all 11 of our UFO films, Rob. All 11 of our Watchers film. Yeah. He was a good friend. He passed away very unexpectedly. The last time I saw him was at the implant removal from Emil, and that was it. That's not true. We took the implant out. 2 days later, we were at SEAL Lab, and then we looked at the implant under a scanning electron microscope. That's the last time I saw him. Then Richard Shaw and I, the director and co-producer of our Watcher series, we went to Peru. We came back from Peru. That was it. He was gone. Never saw him again.
Wow. And guys, I put LA's YouTube up on channel. Go subscribe. It's at YouTube at the LA Marzulli. Now, what I wanted to ask you about was when it comes to alien abduction, it seems like the government almost wants to sweep this under the rug, like it almost like it never happened. But that's why I love interviewing people like you, because it's like we know it happened, and like you've documented it extensively in your Watchers films, and I think it's a big part of what's going on with this UFO phenomena.
Well, it is. We talked about it in the Watchers film, but in this series, and there's 10 DVDs in here. And the UFO Disclosure, there's a whole film, number 4, on abductions. The entire film is just focused on abductions. And what's chilling, there's 2 men and 2 women. The women were taken numerous times. The men were taken numerous times. Sperm taken from the men, ovum taken from the women. Both women found themselves pregnant. And in the 3rd month of pregnancy, the entities came back, re-abducted them, and took the baby from them. Now that's high strangeness, but it's
wow.
And yeah, Rob, it's a breeding program. Everything hinges back of a Genesis 3:15 narrative. And what people don't understand is that this has been going on for thousands of years, but because we're in the last of the last days, things are heating up in ways that I've never seen before. So, sperm is, Emil and Al Matthews, they were taken from the time they were 5 and 6 years old. Same thing with Karen and Angela. Karen was impregnated by them 3 times, like I stated. And then she was re-abducted and, the baby taken. And we kind of broke the story on this to the best of my knowledge. Now, somebody else may have talked about it, but I'm not familiar with it. So we know that the cattle mutilations, all the blood is drained from the animal. Certain parts are cored out with surgical precision. And number 5 in our 10-box DVD set is on cattle mutilations, not for the faint of heart. Very dark film, very unsettling film. Pray up before you watch it. That's not hype. It's a very dark, very disturbing film because it takes you to Hell's Kitchen and there's no happy moment in it. So the animals are drained of blood. They're carved up with surgical precision. Udders are taken, eyes are taken, the flesh around the jaw, the heart sometimes can be taken, the lungs, the sex organs, very, very strange. And what we surmise based on research, you can take the blood from a cow, bovine blood, and you can treat it and use it in a human transfusion. You can treat it and use it in a human transfusion. And that used to be just available up on the internet. And now when you go in and ask AI, it sort of sidesteps it. But when I made that film, I did a Google search. It came up and 3 seconds later, bam. So somebody's messed with it, right? Somebody's messed with it, just saying, okay? Because I found it instantly years ago when we did the film. Now when you type it, it's, you get no. It's not what I saw, 4 or 5 years ago when we did these films. So here's the deal. When that fetus is taken from the mother's womb, it can't live outside the mother's womb. So these entities, and this is conjecture on my part, but it's based on all the research that we've done, because it can't live outside the womb, these entities created an artificial womb using the cow blood and these parts to create an artificial womb. And the baby, the hybrid entity, is taken from the mother and put in the artificial womb. And that, my friend, is high strangeness. That is high strangeness.
And that absolutely, that is very weird. Do you agree with like researchers like Linda Moulton Howe in the sense where she would report, like, I don't know if you remember on Earth Files, she would report, not you might have reported on this too, where they would go and be on a ship, or they would see one of these alien ships, or experiencers would be on a craft, and they would see these like liquid tubes or like these things, and they would have beings in them. Yeah.
That's exactly what's there. Yeah. It's corroborated by different experiencers. There and what people don't get, this hails back to a Genesis 3:15 narrative. Thank you, Gary Stearman, who illuminated that to all of us years ago. But Genesis 6, we all knew the Nephilim, but we forgot about Genesis 3:15, which sets up the seed war. And you've got the fallen cherub, the dragon, who has finally seduced Eve and Adam to eat this, whatever the fruit was. Something happens to their DNA. They're completely changed. They're hiding from the Lord, and the Lord shows up and says to the dragon, Satan, your seed, your offspring will be at war with the seed, the offspring of the woman. The one coming from the woman, the proto-evangelion, the Messiah, will crush your head, you will bruise his heel. That's the entire Bible. Understand that, and the Bible opens up. Because it's a seed war. Jesus says it'll be like the days of Noah. What differentiates the days of Noah is the seed war manifesting on the planet. Hybrids, the Nephilim, are walking amongst us. Why would Jesus point to the days of Noah? Why would the prophet Daniel, the angel speaking to Daniel, say, seal up the words in this book, Daniel. Men and women will run to and fro over the face of the earth. Knowledge will increase. Last days. He's telling us the future. And then he says something which is profound. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. Who are they? It can't be men. So who is it? And part of the problem within the Christian community is that they don't take the Bible literally. And so, it's all allegory. It's not really what it means. Or they've adapted the Sethite theory. The Sethite theory didn't come into vogue until the 4th century. And Julius Africanus was the one that promulgated that. Augustine.
What is that? If you could tell us, what is this? What did you call it? The setback theory?
The setback theory. So in the book of Genesis, when you go to chapter 6, it says, the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and desired them, and took wives, plural, from whoever they wished, and went into them. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God saw the daughters of men. So sons of God is always translated B'nai Ha-Elohim, which always refers to the angelic host. And how do we know that? Because the Bible tells us in other places, specifically Job, the angels of God, the B'nai Ha-Elohim. So we know that they're angels. The book of Enoch amplifies that and tells us in the book of Enoch that the angels of heaven left their first estate. Book of Jude. Jude is quoting Enoch. The angels left their first estate, going after strange flesh. Well, that's exactly what happened in the Genesis 6 account. But the Sethite theory flips it. oh, these are the good. So the sons of God become the godly line of Seth, and the women of earth become the hoochie mamas of Cain. That's not what happens. And that's what's taught.
Mamas of Cain.
Yeah. That's what's taught in the seminaries. So you've got pastors, men that are studying to become pastors, and they go out, they know nothing about the seed war, nothing. Genesis 3:15 is not taught. So when they get to Genesis 6, they're left scratching their heads. Boy, only 8 people survived the flood. What's going on here? When they get to Sodom and Gomorrah and the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, they have no explanation. When they get to the conquest of Canaan by the children of Israel, they don't realize that it's a culmination of a seed war, because you've got the seed of Abraham is there, all the 12 tribes after 400 years, a couple of million people, and in the field of battle in the promised land, you've got the Nephilim, the Rephaim, the Zanzamim, the Emims, the Anakim, the Horites, all names that denote Nephilim tribes. They go at it. There's the seed war, culmination of it. Finally, the seed of the woman manifests in the Messiah, in Jesus. There it is. There it is. But if you don't understand the seed war, the Bible remains shut, because a person doesn't understand when Jesus says they'll be like the days of Noah. He's pointing back to the seed war, because that's when it exploded. Because only 8 people got on that ark.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you about was the Nephilim, and do you think they've turned into what we now think of as demons? Because I've heard some people say that they believe that the Nephilim are now the disincarnate spirits, or what we call demons, that are possessing people, and we're seeing a lot more cases of entity attachments nowadays. So I kind of wanted to get your opinion on all that. What do you think?
Yeah, the demons, in my opinion, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim became the demons that wander the earth. It makes sense. A demon has to manifest in a human being, in an animal, or in an object. That's it. So that's what we're looking at. They are at the bottom of the Luciferian hierarchy. So when people talk about, oh, the UFO thing, it's all demonic, you can't say that. That's a very truncated view. Demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. I think a better approach to that is to say that the UFO phenomena is a Luciferian one. And in that Luciferian umbrella, in that Luciferian agenda, you've got rulers, authorities, cosmic powers, spiritual forces. In other words, you have a hierarchy, a militaristic structure, which is embedded in the Luciferian hierarchy, of which demons are basically the bottom feeders. They're the last guys, because these other rulers, authorities, and the Greek words archons, exousias, cosmocrates, pneumatica. These are Greek names for rulers, authorities, cosmic powers, spiritual forces. There's a hierarchy, a well-structured hierarchy in the Luciferian camp, under the Luciferian umbrella. And that's what the churches don't, oh, it's all demonic. You can't say that. That's a very truncated, very narrow view of the whole UFO phenomena.
Do you believe they're going? They're coming from other planets. I know I talked to Daryl Sims, for example, and he's a Christian researcher, and he believes that they have large craft somewhere out in. We're getting feedback. I wonder.
Are you still getting feedback? I'm good on my end, just so you know.
Let me see what's going on. I don't know. We're getting real bad feedback. I don't know where it's from. We're good now. I think we're good. Yeah. Oh wow. I don't know what that is. It's weird. It'll come through and then it stops. But I know Daryl Sims talked about. He thought that these beings had a craft out in space, and that's where they made all these versions of aliens. Because he said it's a Nordic and a reptilian. They have earthly DNA in a sense, in a mantis, a praying mantis alien has earthly DNA. So do you think that's possible, that they could just be created with earthly DNA?
Well, we know this from the book of Enoch. Once again, I mean, if you were going to keep one book away from the people, you never tell them about the book of Enoch. I mean, I read about it in 19 87, 88, when I got Dr. I.D.E. Thomas's life-changing book for me, The Omega Conspiracy. And he quotes Enoch. And I went, this is in the days before Amazon. So I had to go down to the Christian bookstore and order it, or a bookstore and order the Book of Enoch, R.H. Charles. That's a whole different world back then. And I got it and devoured it in like 1 or 2 sittings. What's interesting about that is it tells us that these fallen angels, when they came down, they sinned against the animal kingdom. They created chimeras. They were mixing the genomes. They were mixing the DNA. And that sounds really far out, right? But it's not. Even though that was written thousands of years ago. And by the way, the Book of Enoch is found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I already said Jude quotes it. Peter alludes to it. And I think Jesus alludes to it. So the Book of Enoch is important for us to read. Again, if you were going to keep one book away from the people, that's the book you keep away, because that way they never understand what happened in the days of Noah, especially when they're taught the Sethite theory, which in my opinion is 110% wrong. It just is. These are not the godly line of Seth and the hoochie mamas of Cain. It makes no sense at all. You guys are just making this up. And that wasn't invented, like I said, until the 4th century, where Julius Africanus just comes in and pulls this theological rabbit out of his hat. And there's some well-meaning people that just continue to espouse this. There's well-meaning pastors. And so when they get to the promised land, well, that's genocide. Well, God's ways are above our ways. Excuse me. You plug the Nephilim, and what you get is a hybrid race that are there in the promised land, and they don't have any souls. They are soulless. They are in a fixed state. Only God can give a soul. So regarding Sims, that's a very plausible scenario that, yes, they are taking DNA and messing with it, just like they did way back in the days of Noah, according to the Book of Enoch. Again, folks, if you have not read the Book of Enoch, it's a must. It's not part of our canon, but it's historicity. What was written there opens up the antediluvian world.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you about it, I don't know if you touch on this much, but I kind of wanted to get your opinion on it. Like where the government's at with reverse engineered technology and and the secret space program. It seems like we have something, where are you at with all that?
Well, I mean, we're being told this much of a picture that's this big. I said this before, in the Spielberg film. So Spielberg alludes to 4 different things in the film. The Roswell incident, and he reenacts that. The Kecksburg incident, and he reenacts that. Eisenhower and the Greys signing a treaty, he reenacts that. And Jackie Gleason with President Nixon looking at the retrieved bodies from Roswell. And he looks right at the camera in the third trailer for Disclosure Day, the film, and looks right at the camera and goes, I used to think to myself, wouldn't it be great if the American people found out that all of this is true? And then it cuts away to part of the film. And then he comes back and he goes, it's all true. Well, it is. And, he's in my opinion, and this is conjecture, I believe he saw the original footage of all that and reenacted it. That's what I think. Specifically Roswell. Yeah. With the Greys and the stretcher. We actually have in this 10 DVD box set, we show a clip, and it's like, we don't know whether it's real or not, but we used it. Okay. And it shows Roswell, 1947, and it shows one of the Greys being carried in on a stretcher. And Spielberg used the exact scene in his film from a slightly different camera angle, which I thought was really, really interesting. And you'll also notice in the Spielberg film, the world is on the precipice of a nuclear exchange, which is something I write about in the Rungs of Disclosure. That's the trigger. That's what people don't get. Rob, we're on this side of disclosure. So people, yawn, we've seen all this before, right? Nobody does anything. If Steven Spielberg had come out with that film 30 or 40 years ago, that would be it. If the release from the War Department of all these tranches of UFO material was released 30 years ago, that's all everybody would be talking about. But everybody has been slowly boiled, like the frog and water analogy, which we've heard ad nauseum, right? Nobody cares because we're on this side of disclosure. We're over here. Here's disclosure. Here's the line. We're over here. So when these guys show up on the other side of disclosure, when disclosure really happens and these guys show up, Rob, the entire planet locks down. We already had a rehearsal for it. It's called with COVID, where the entire planet locked down. Remember that? Entire planet, unprecedented in all history. Yeah.
I remember it was a nightmare. I remember going to my local Rite Aid when Rite Aid was still a store here. And I live in Pittsburgh, by the way, by where Kecksburg was. Like I live probably maybe I don't know, maybe 50 to 100 miles from Kecksburg, you know? So
I've been to Kecksburg. Yeah.
You've been there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What do you think happened?
It was a UFO. It was like Roswell, 1947. Same thing, only much later. My mother and father-in-law, they're both deceased. They lived in Youngwood, which is fairly close to Kecksburg, and they told me the whole incident. Oh yeah, they sealed everything off. Something was taken out. It was all covered up in canvas tarps. It's just like the road was closed. You couldn't get in, couldn't get out. Oh yeah. And Spielberg uses that in his film. And Spielberg also uses the idea that the world was on a verge of a nuclear holocaust. And the last word in the film, and spoiler alert here, but it's time to go out with that. So a gray is wheeled in to this newsroom, and it's a very tall gray. It's about 8-9 feet tall, and it starts doing its little clicky noise, and the male protagonist translates it and then goes to the female, Emily Blunt's character, and tells her. Now she goes up, and all the cameras all over the planet, everything has been switched. It's on her. Okay, so the planet is watching something in lockstep, which is right out of Rungs of Disclosure. There it is. Not making this up. So
I gotta ask you, LA, what do you think the nuclear war has to do with it and us being on the verge of nuclear war? Because when we look at what's going on in Iran,
Rob, it creates the greatest climate of fear that humanity has ever experienced collectively. That's when the Space Brothers show up, and they will say, we created all life on this planet. We genetically manipulated early man. We started the world's religions, started the world's civilizations. Now it's this critical juncture in human history, the event of a nuclear event happening on the planet. We're back to usher mankind into a golden age. And the New Agers have been talking about this for decades. When I was a New Ager, 48 years ago, that's what I believed. The Space Brothers were going to come back. But the last word in the film is Emily Blunt. The entire planet's watching her. They're all on their goofy cell phones, right? They're all and she looks right at the camera and she says one word: listen, listen. And then the screen goes black and the credits come up. She doesn't tell you what listen to what. So what people don't know, and I got this from my good friend Mando Gonzalez. So every Jew on the planet, every Jew knows what the Shema is. And the Shema is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That's the Shema. That's the Shema. Hear, listen. See where I'm going with this? Listen, hear, listen. But she never finishes it. She just says, listen. In other words, what they're doing, Spielberg's Jewish. He knows exactly what he's doing. So when she says listen, and it cuts, we don't get to hear listen to what? Listen to a new gospel. And this ties right into my work. This is what I have called, and by the way, I invented the term. Other people will say that they invented it. It's in my book, which was published by Zondervan. So 97, 98, 99, right around in there. So it's over 28 years ago, right? And I came up with the words, the great deception, the great deception, the coming great deception. And so I invented that. It's in my novel. It's in the book right there, the Nephilim Trilogy right there. And what this is, and I'll say it again, if you have a nuclear event, everything stops. If these guys show up, all cameras are on this, especially if it's over multiple cities. Folks, you're watching this, do your homework, go to YouTube when this is done, and type in "Hello down there 2024 Super Bowl ad." Hello down there 2024 Super Bowl ad, and watch it. That's
What's
predictive.
that? Tell us.
It's predictive programming, because all over the earth now it's a minute and a half commercial, so they don't have time to show every city, but we see UFOs over a diner, an indiscriminate diner in out west Texas someplace. We see a UFO over New York City, the skyline. We see a UFO over the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. We see a UFO over a Japanese city someplace in Japan. In other words, Scorsese, who's the director of that, is telling us that this is a global event. And that's predictive programming. So you have a nuclear event that goes off. They show up. That's the game changer. And just like COVID, the entire planet shuts down. Rob, you have a nuclear event. There's no airplanes in the air, number one. You're told to shelter in place, number two. We've already practiced all this, haven't we? Right? Haven't we practiced this during COVID? And I said this. Yeah. I said this years ago. I said this is a dry run from what is coming. Okay? I called it. I'm boasting here, patting myself on the back, but I did. I called it. I said this is a dry run for what is coming, because they controlled the entire global environment. Never in the history of the world had that happen. Think about that. Unprecedented moment.
I would say, to give you credit, you're an old school conspiracy researcher. Not, I mean, like you're well tapped into the new school stuff, but like you've been around for a while doing this. So like you said, you've been in the New Age community and you're also in the Christian community. So you've seen a lot. You probably heard all the early contactees. You've been following this stuff a while, and you've been also following geopolitics and religion. So you can sense when something's going to happen. Probably, I guess. Probably.
I don't know about sense. It's just that I didn't sign up for this. But I've got, 34 films and 16 books. And many of the books, like this one right behind me, UFO Disclosure, and in the book underneath it, Rungs of Disclosure, and the new book, A Luciferian Endgame, that'll come out in January. Now there's a lot of newly guys, newbies coming on the scene, going to tell you all about it. Well, where were you 25 years ago when you were getting laughed at? I mean, I was kicked out of a church because of this. People used to look at me like I had three heads, talking about the Nephilim and all this other stuff. So it's annoying on one level, because some of us have been in the trenches for decades, and now because it's the latest thing. Some of these people, it's all demonic. Again, that's a very uninformed, truncated view of the phenomena. No, it's not demonic. It's Luciferian, and this is a Luciferian conspiracy, which has been cooked up in Hell's Kitchen, as the late Russ Dizdar used to call it, and is about to be sprung on the earth. Let me read you something. This is channeled information. This is the track that we give out. This is channeled information coming through a woman who is a channeler, an entity coming through. Don't do this, because you don't know whether that entity is benevolent and malevolent. And in fact, we're told not to do this. You don't open yourself up to entities. Just don't do that. We are here. Remember, this is not the woman speaking. This is the entity coming through her. We are here. We are the Pleiadians. Humanity is learning a great lesson at this time. The lesson is, of course, to realize your godhood. Well, that's the same lie that we heard way back in the Genesis narrative, when the serpent tells Eve, when the day you taste of whatever this thing is, of the fruit, you will be like God, knowing good from evil. It's the same exact lie. If human beings do not change, if they do not make the shift in values and realize that without Earth, they would not be here, then Earth, and its love for its own initiation, is reaching for a higher frequency, will bring about a cleansing that will balance it once again. What's the cleansing? Here we go. There is a potential for many people to leave the planet in an afternoon. The people who leave the planet in an afternoon during a time of Earth changes do not fit here any longer, and they are stopping the harmony of the Earth. In the Christian Bible, we have two sentences, two prophecies. Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. The trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable. We all must be changed. For the perishable must be clothed with the imperishable, and the mortal with immortality. All right, that's the first one. The second one is this one: the Lord Himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and the trump of God. The dead in Christ will rise first, and then we who are alive and remain will be caught up together with those in the clouds to greet the Lord in the air, and so shall we evermore be with the Lord. That is the rapture of the church, the snatching away, the harpazo, written 2,000 years ago, and the New Agers are explaining it. The channeled information from a demonic entity is explaining it away. We're the people that don't fit here any longer. I love it. I love it. It's already explained. The other side of the aisle knows all about the rapture, and they're telling you about it. So, hello, that's a lot of food for thought. So we're, Rob, we're on the cusp of something. And I've got another 15 minutes. I got a hard break at 4 o'clock. Actually, a little bit before then, I'm on another show. So I got another 10 minutes with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, we kind of covered a lot already, but yeah, like what I wanted to ask you was what was the breaking point that like made you like go away from the New Age and embrace Christianity? Like what did you see that kind of made you like
because I was never changed internally. In other words, you can meditate till the cows come home. I'm being silly here, but you can. And you can fly around the universe. I did that. It's called astral projection. You can have encounters with entities. It never changes the heart of a human being. It never changes our sin nature, who we are, what we're born with. And you can tap dance around that till the cows come home. But you've got stuff in you, I've got stuff in me, and every single person out there who's listening has stuff in them. And so after years of meditation and doing, rituals and ceremonies to try to reach the gods and all this other stuff, I just realized I was the same schmuck I'd always been. Nothing had changed. And I was reading a book, I was 30 years old, 46 years ago, by David Hunt called The Cult Explosion. And at the back of it's this little prayer. I said, look, I don't know whether you're real or not, Jesus, but if you are, come into my life. I invited him in. Rob, about a month later, all hell broke loose as I was being taken out of the kingdom of darkness. It was a rescue operation. And that experience lasted about 3 years. Very heavy spiritual warfare, very, very intense. I was like in a self-imposed monastery, essentially, for 3 years. I became a worship leader. My life completely changed. And look, I'm 75 years old. Okay, I'll be 76 in December. So I'm walking. I've been walking this for 46 years, and it's more real and more poignant now than it's ever been, because the Lord has raised me up for such a time like this. I didn't volunteer for this. I had no interest 46 years ago making films, writing books. I never thought I would do any of that. It wasn't even a glimmer in my eye. Never thought. Now there's 34 films and 16 books. It's crazy. It's good. Crazy good.
Yeah. Do you ever talk to Dr. David Jacobs anymore?
I just the last time we spoke to him was years ago, and I think he's kind of out of the picture now. I'm not sure about that, but I think he's declined. That's all I know. No audio, Rob. I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing you. That's so bizarre. Still not hearing you.
It's there we go. There we go. So sorry about that. It was for some reason it went on mute. I have no clue why. It's like we're getting messed with. But
yeah, you are. Rob,
Dr.
look at
David
me.
Jacobs.
Rob, you're being messed with, guaranteed. I promise you that.
Yeah. I guess that's all the questions I have. I mean, this was an amazing interview. I know you have another one to do, but I mean, is there anything you kind of want to like finish up with, or some final words for the audience? This was a great interview, Alex. Thank you. They're always really good with you.
Rob. Thank you. The Waiting Room is a really cool book. It's a novel. It's a quick read, but it will make you laugh and cry all the way through it. And then Rungs of Disclosure we're up to rung number 30. Do your homework. It's coming, and it's a game changer. It is a game changer when it comes. So you can go to Marzulli.com. We've got specials up there. You can get rungs plus a bonus DVD. You can go to Amazon, whatever. But do your homework, folks, because this thing is coming down. And it is a game. It'll change everything. When they show up, everything changes. It's COVID on steroids. Trust me. Trust me. And you will watch the religions of the world crumble. There's an ancient prophecy which says this, that the Spirit expressly states, written about 2,000 years ago, the Spirit expressly states that in the latter days, some will depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and the doctrines of demons. If you hold to a Calvinistic theological bent, then you say, well, that can't possibly be me. Once saved, always saved. But if you're for the persuasion of the Arminian, well, you have free will. Something may happen and you may change your mind. And they've been arguing that point for hundreds of years, and that's a sore point of contention. A Calvinist doesn't believe that, an Arminian does. I lean more towards a Calvinian, where it's somewhere in between the two. We'll see what happens. But that prophecy is there. That prophecy is there.
Wow.
LAMarzulli.com.
Well, thank you so much for your. Thank you, LA, and thank you everybody for tuning in today. And sorry about the technical difficulties, everybody. And thanks, LA. This was awesome as usual. And all right, good night,
Take
everybody.
care,